day, everyone. This is Sandra Alexei Morn, and I'm really, really happy to welcome you to a new format that we have today. Today is November the 12th, and we're basking in this wonderful full moon of Taurus. I am going to introduce you to Matthew Ashdown, and him and I are collaborating, and we're going to do some very exciting workshops, some courses and stuff together, and we're going to talk about that. And so I'm going to give it over to Matthew, and he can tell you a little bit about what he does. And I will say this, synchronicity always draws people to me that are like-minded in how we're going to work together. And I met him and we just clicked, and he's my teacher now. Okay, one of my teachers, my main one right now. So Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Sandra. It was it's great to be on here with you. I do see you as somebody who's an equal with me, and we're on this journey together. It's that each of us is bringing something different. We each have a little, I think of it, we're all in this big stew on this planet, and we're all a different part of the recipe. And that without one part of the recipe, the stew wouldn't taste very good. It's missing that one ingredient. And you and I have this great connection, and you, my wife and you have a great connection, and friends of ours. And it's like, there's this melting pot of creativity that goes on between us. And sitting here today on this, this Taurus full moon, it's really quite exciting. There's a lot of energy and potency. And you and I are sitting here, we've got this, we've got some upcoming courses that we're going to work through with people. And it's a really powerful time for change on the planet. And I'm fascinated by all these things. I'm fascinated by what humanity is becoming. I'm fascinated by what we're letting go of, what we're dissolving. And, seeing how the work of the astrology work that you do and your numerology work and the many other things, you're a multi-dimensional light. That's what I call them, or they call them multi-potentialites, right? Where there's so many different potentials with it. But you're also a multi-dimensional light as well, so that makes it even more interesting. And the Gene Keys work, I love that you've taken it on. I see you diving in. That's the piece that I'm sharing with the world because I'm so passionate about it. And it's going to be fun to explore it with other folks and even giving them hints as to what it's about today, because this Gene Keys body of work really has been around for thousands of years in its original form, which was the I Ching, right, out of the Eastern world. And now over time it's morphed, and we've got this modern day interpretation of it, which also brings in elements of modern science and conversations about the evolution of humanity. And it's really, they call it a terma, right? It's this gift to our planet at this time. And so I feel blessed to be one of the folks that is trusted to be able to share this with other people. And so the Gene Keys body of work is really evolving. It's continuing to evolve. It's based on the basic principles brought through by Richard Rudd in his book, The Gene Keys. But there's so much creativity coming from so many folks who are finding different ways to share it with the world. And you and I are connecting on one particular way that we're going to be able to share this in such a dynamic way so that people going through real transition times and transformations can really anchor in that depth of their purpose and to be able to take their relationships in life to a whole new level as well.
Right. And so Matthew, can you give them a little bit of your background of how you have gone through your own transition and how you got into the Gene Keys?
Yeah, it's a good thing we're coming up to 2020 because I can look back with 2020 vision, but I wasn't able to see that at the time. So, as with many spiritual paths that people walk, it can look messy. It can look like we're lost at times, but that's really how our mind's playing with it. So I guess for me, my whole exploration and trying to understand this world and my place in it started after an accident I had when I was 13 years old, which really wasn't an accident. The fact that I was in this particular place on holiday with my families, I had an accident And I ended up in hospital for 6 weeks, in the hospital where the only doctor who could have performed that surgery happened to live. And all these other factors that were telling me that the doctors were saying how lucky I was to have got out. But it made me really question life. I grew up in a Catholic family. I grew up with the version of God and spirituality that was taught to me by that Catholic religion. And there were aspects of it that resonated, but there were things that felt incomplete to me. And so during my teenage years, I could say during my teenage years, I was probably felt quite lost. And it was in my early 20s when I began to I moved over to Canada from England. I'd studied at university, I studied aerospace engineering. And throughout those university days, I did feel lost. And I also suffered from a lot of insomnia. And I can actually trace this through my gene key chart, and I can see where that came from too. Because the insomnia was, a part of my soul was just saying that what I was studying this rigid science that had no element of spirit in it. And yet that's a huge part of who I am. You shared that with me when you first gave me my astrology chart reading, that it's always been a big part of my life, whether I've known it or not. And so I got into the Kundalini Kriya Yoga from East India, which was first brought to the US by Paramahansa Yogananda. And then I started learning that through, I learned the actual techniques through another master who comes here still from India. And, this was these very high principles of moving and ascending to higher planes and everything. And what I felt I needed, and it wasn't that they were missing anything, it was my own understanding of things, is I felt I needed some practical things to work through things on a day-to-day basis, because I could sit on my mat and meditate for 2 hours at a time, but then I'd walk out the front door and I'd be arguing with somebody before the end of the day, right? And so it was like, okay, how do I live this, breathe this, walk this? I know that I'm here to serve others in some capacity, some shape, but I wasn't sure how. And it was 2012 that I was introduced to the gene keys through a friend. And that's when I started because I dive in deep, and I'm like you, I dive in deep and studying it. And then I kept diving in deeper, and then I got a reading from another person who shares it around the world. And it even added another slant of understanding for me, where I wanted to take it even deeper. And then people started asking me about them, and then I started sharing them. And so now it's come down to doing online courses and sharing with people my own experiences, my own challenges, because, we're all walking this path together. It's like, here we are on this Taurus full moon, and this morning I was lifting up and moving to, better places within myself, because I was recognizing these shadow elements of even today. And so it's a continual evolution process. And what I love about the times we're into is that there's this recognition and understanding that some of the teachers who are bringing through real spiritual wisdom, including Richard Rudd, who wrote the Gene Keys, and some other names that we're familiar with in the world, they're very human people. They recognize their ordinariness and they recognize their extraordinariness. And so they bring in these elements through their teachings in such a way that suddenly the man on the street can connect to them and feel and be with them and understand them. And what's really fascinating to me too is when I started on my spiritual journey, I thought I could either have relationships or spiritual life. I couldn't marry the two together in my mind. And now here I am on this journey with the Gene Keys, and it's like your spiritual awakening happens through relationships, right? And so there's the journey continues for me. And when we are reaching our full potential in the world, we know it, we can feel it. We feel on purpose, we feel fulfilled in everything that we do. Every conversation, like this conversation, I'm passionate about it. I love sharing this. I love knowing that there's somebody out there watching this that is going to get, something's going to twig for them. Twig. They're going to get,
yeah.
or trigger. one or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's it's also fascinating to me.
Well, the interesting thing, Matthew, is anybody that does know me, it's like this has been a constant for me. It's like a 50-year journey, and I'm here and I'm there, and I say I go on a walkabout for about 5 years, and then I come back and integrate it and embody it. And it's interesting that you are a Taurus and I am a Capricorn. And so they're very earthy signs. Okay.
Mm.
Earthy signs are very practical. So when a practical person can embody the spiritual, it's like that's why this Taurus move, that's why we're doing it today. It is about practicality.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel so many people, and I've worked with them, they've gone away, they've studied this, and they come back and they still, it's not, they haven't embodied it. And so there have been no changes, okay? And it's interesting that you mentioned 2012, because I'm just going through, and this will be another video that we will do to share, Matthew, you on the pulses and talking about that and the sequences and that. And for me, I'm looking back right till 2008, okay? Then 2012, then 2000. And in 2008, in December, I told everybody this it's going to hit, and it's going to hit hard, because Pluto went into Capricorn, which is the earth sign. Before that, it was in Sagittarius. So we all had this, the law of attraction. And I went to Jerry and Esther Hicks attraction seminars, and I just couldn't get it. It was like, I can't just sit there and visualize. I have to put the two together. That's all I knew. Somehow I had to integrate them. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And when I seen Pluto was coming into Capricorn, I just went, wow, this is going to take the world. It's going to go crazy. But 2008, December, we had the Bernie Madoff's thing, and it's just been, and so now when I look at the world, and if there's ever a time, I'm really stressing this to every soul that is watching this. We started in 2008, Pluto's working till 2023, and all we need to look is the world is very much in turmoil. It's very chaotic. There's a lot of things being revealed, and that's really the dark. Okay, so that's the shadow work, and at the same time, that's going on within us, and we have this incredible opportunity with, like you say, Matthew, with the gene keys. For me, okay, I'm doing courses with Matthew, and it comes out of genetic, and that's what I've always said to people. There's more than just thinking about it, because we have a cellular memory. Dr. Bruce Lipton had talked about that. A cellular memory within our body, in our gene keys. So it's, I feel sad because people hope that if I have this positive affirmation, if I have this, it's going to work. And what happens is there's a hopelessness for the people. So they just, their frequency goes down and everything goes down. And so the time frame for this is absolutely phenomenal. And so now you've talked, what he does is the gene keys. I do the astrology and numerology, and we've given you a sampler. I say a little taste.
Yeah. And it's I like that you use that word embodiment, because I think that's a huge piece of it. You know, we can get these truths intellectually. You know, we can read something in a book, but that doesn't mean transformation has occurred. It means that we've heard something. And that's why, you know, when people use affirmations, they repeat something many, many times over in order for it to sink in. But if it's not their core truth, then it's never going to sink in, right? It's like, and the embodiment happens, because I used to be somebody, like, you know, 10 years ago, I was doing affirmations all the time. And, you know, I found exactly what you were saying. And now I'll still notice my thought patterns and correct where possible and that kind of thing. And at the same time, it's like these truths have to be embodied at a at all levels of our bodies, meaning our physical body, our emotional body, our mental body, our spiritual body. And unless those all are integrated, it's just talk, it's just theory, and it's not embodiment. And so I really appreciate it when we do this kind of work, is that we get to go deep into that embodiment process so that we can actually anchor in these new frequencies on the planet, so that we can, we are able to sit with our shame, we're able to sit with our guilt, our sadness, and transmute them, alchemize them, turn them into these higher frequency gifts in the world. Because the shadows that you've talked about, if we only allowed ourselves to go through them, we would realize that there is these beautiful gifts on the other side. Carl Jung talked about those, and we were talking about Carl Jung earlier. And so it's this whole process of alchemization. Those things that we think are wrong with us or bad about us, is that those inherently hold the gift that we are here to share in the world. And it's by shining the light on them that we transform it. So like you said, with all these changes coming up in the world, we can look for those changes in the external world.
Right.
But if we go in and work within ourselves and shift ourselves, that's going to be where we're going to experience the greatest growth, right?
And that's where we can actually help the world collectively. Because when we do the healing and our light and our frequency goes higher, we're going to affect the people around us. And as you say, embody. And another thing is it's synthesizing in the brain. Because as a teacher, it was always rote memorization. It's to synthesize it for understanding. And I could tell when a student would get it, because they go, oh, and the pupil dilates. So we actually get into the body and do that kind of work. And the next thing is, so now we do this, we can also work with what are the different planetary cycles. Okay, that's what I look like. What are the planetary cycles? What are the equinoxes? What are the seasons? What's happening with the moon? And in astrology, what's your first Saturn return, your second Saturn return? Where are you setting up? And I'm really excited because December the 3rd, Jupiter moves into Capricorn, and everybody has the different houses and that type of thing. But for me, because I'm a Capricorn, so for one full year, I get the blessings, but I've worked really hard to come to that point. So now I take advantage of it, because it only happens every 12 years. So you really have to focus on it and take advantage of it. And it's through our awareness of what's going on in the cosmos, what's going on within our own energetic body, because we're energy beings. And for me, I don't see a gender. I don't see a color. I just see an energy being. And there's where the integration. And for all of you, 2020 is going to rock your world. It's going to be a game changer. So I would suggest you get ready, because we're hitting the new decade and we are moving into, we're starting to move it. Well, the Aquarian age is there, but the actual planets now, Saturn is going to be moving into that within about a year and a half. So Matthew, thank you so much. And everyone, this is your invitation. Okay. You've met Matthew now, you know me. Some of you will get to know me more, get to know Matthew. And we're on this journey to assist you in finding your gifts, okay? Finding your purpose, raising your frequency, having some joy. And the very first relationship is with self. And yes, Matthew, you do need to, you understand more about yourself when you are in relationship. But at the same time, it's learning about how you relate to yourself. Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
And to clear your own wounds and your own shadows. Okay. And so I'd like to close now, and I want to thank you, Matthew. And I'm inviting anybody to send some comments in if you have any questions, and maybe we'll do another one next week, Matthew. And we'll
make time for it. Yeah.
Yeah, you can. And we can talk a little bit more about the sequence, the different sequences in the gene key. And I can show maybe a chart. And then Matthew is going to ask his dear wife, who is one of the top mediums in the world. She just got back. She was doing a European tour. So I would like to interview you as a couple, but you ask to see if it's all right. And then maybe she can share. So we've got some
Absolutely.
exciting things coming up. And for anybody that's interested, you can put comments. And if you're not subscribed, you can email me or Facebook me. So thank you so much, Matthew. And bless everybody and enjoy this wonderful Taurian energy of this beautiful moon.